Patients come in with colds and flus and they say straight away, I need an antibiotic. It's sort of educating them that you might not have a bacterial infection. It could be a virus.
Once an antibiotic of a first generation is effective, and we're using it only when needed for that particular ailment and leaving out all the I've got a cold business. Absolutely. I think it's very, very unnecessary to go to the very complicated new second, third generations.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah and welcome back to the podcast Learniverse, a program designed to educate people on diverse range of content. I'm your host Rohan Ahmed, joining you from the studios of MT International Gambia. And today we have the pleasure of having a dynamic duo, that is a mother and daughter team. And they are Mrs. Laila, Khadra Trablousi and Miss Nour Trablousi. Welcome to the show and it's a pleasure to have you.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Rohan. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you. So before we delve into the discussion, can you briefly tell us about your roles? Starting from
me, of course.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
the mother.
Yeah.
Where can we start? As background, my name is Laila Khadra Trablousi. I'm the CEO of Malak Chemist, which is a pharmacy that's almost 33 years old. And birth, I would like to always add that we are fourth generation Lebanese Gambian. I think that would be enough for now. Rohan, we'll keep the list for later.
Okay, that's fine, yes.
And my name is Nour, like you mentioned, and it's my mum, Laila, but I am a pharmacist, so I studied in the UK, and I'm based there at the moment. I've got 5 years experience in hospital, and I've just joined sort of the GP world there for a year. And I am on holiday here, but I'm hoping to come back and be on mum's side here and help.
Take over.
Well, no, help support, never take over.
Inshallah, inshallah.
No, thank you. And it's a pleasure to have you today joining us. So let's move on with the questions.
Yes, go on.
And there's a frequently asked question that are medication with expiration dates, safe to use? Does it just lose its efficacy or is it toxic? So what is your take on that?
So I think it's important in terms of sort of medications when they're labeled with expiry dates. And one point that we always like to let our patients know is the use by or the best before dates. So if it says sort of, for example, use by or best before January 2026, most of our patients will come in and say if they've purchased something that it expires in January, but we always like to remember that it is the end of that month. So anything that has a label that says, for example, January, February, it's the 31st or the 30th of that month. So that's really important to note. And of course, in terms of expiry dates, they are important to sort of adhere to because it's when the manufacturers deem that it's the most stable at that point, which brings us to sort of storage requirements. So we always tell our patients that if they purchase something at Malak, it's non-returnable. And there are exception cases where patients don't tend to understand that, but it's because we can't guarantee that once it leaves our premises, it's stored as per the manufacturer's requirements. And if it isn't, for instance, if it needs storage in fridge or at certain room temperature, it will cause sort of instability of the drug, and that renders it unsuitable for consumption, doesn't it?
Yeah, and what I realized that sometimes it happens that a product is taken, it's left in their car, it can get extremely hot. Yeah. And then the next thing, a product is brought back. We fly things over by air. So you always worrying about the way that the product is flown, it's brought in, the temperature, the air conditioning. So we try and explain that we always say, please be sure of what you're taking so that in case that you do, you cannot just come back. So it is our duty to our clients not to bring stuff back that you've taken, because as my daughter said, we cannot guarantee that once it left the pharmacy, you have adhered to the rules of the temperature control or any other detail.
Yeah, okay, that's great. So can you explain that superbug? Sometimes people are having this condition which results to this term, which is superbug. So can you a little bit explain what this term is, and if someone is under this condition, how he should go about?
So I think superbug broadly means sort of any strain of bacteria that's resistant to antibiotics. So it could be an infection that they have, and that infection is a result of a bacteria that's not being treated because it's resistant to all forms of antibiotics. And I think one of the biggest things that we have in this country, and generally worldwide as well, we see it in the UK a lot, is antibiotic resistance, and it's becoming more prevalent. And that's because of our overconsumption of antibiotic therapy. Or for instance, if patients come in with colds and flus and they say straight away, I need an antibiotic, it's sort of educating them that you might not have a bacterial infection. It could be a virus, and using an antibiotic for that just increases its resistance. So when you do come with an infection that's caused by a superbug or a really resistant antibiotic strain, all the sorts of first-class antibiotics don't have an effect on them anymore because of that resistance. So I think we play a major role, I mean you do, being based here most of the time, in educating our patients in terms of, antibiotic resistance. So making sure that just because it's a virus, they don't need antibiotic therapy. If they are started on an antibiotic for bacterial infections, they need to make sure they finish the course, they complete it. If they're started on antibiotics, they need to make sure that what they're prescribed is sort of your first generation antibiotics that are sensitive to what they're on. Most of the time, because of pharma companies and that sort of stuff trying to push newer generation antibiotics, they tend to prescribe them and they don't need to be on them.
I'm going to put in here that I totally agree on one thing. When you are in Africa, already the medication is expensive. And we are doing very well with most of the first generation antibiotics. It is totally unnecessary to then get doctors prescribing. I'm not saying that any particular doctor here is doing it, but in general, once an antibiotic of a first generation is effective, and we're using it only when needed for that particular ailment and leaving out all the I've got a cold business. Absolutely. I think it's very, very unnecessary to go to the very complicated new second, third generations that are extremely expensive. And it means that once these things are needed, they're no longer viable because they have now become totally used here and resistant, which makes it even tougher for us here in Africa financially and to find antibiotics that can work for infections. So yes, it's a role I think that can be played on all levels, starting with the prescriber right to the pharmacy and the people facing the clients over the counter, to deter them from using and educating them on the use of antibiotics.
And then just to add on that as well, in terms of infection control, I think that plays a major part in superbugs. Having, really, really good infection control procedures overall in terms of, using your hand sanitizers, hand hygiene. We've got the 7-step hand hygiene that we use in the UK. I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but it's simply, using just soap and water that we've got and thoroughly washing your hands. And it's a 7-step routine to make sure that it gets rid of most sort of, bacteria and stuff. If you're basically living around the elderly or immunocompromised patients that have sort of long-term respiratory conditions, diabetes, it's really important as a role generally in a household that we all make sure that we adhere to sort of infection control, so hand washing.
Before you approach the elderly and other people that are immunocompromised, so that you do not let them catch the bug that you've got. And that's what happened with COVID, right? Before we could even control it, this is what happened. It was spread to the people that are most vulnerable. The elderly, the people with asthma, diabetes, and all of this could have prevented, as everyone knows, COVID is a virus, and viruses are all over the place. So be it COVID or anything, it can be controlled, it can be dealt with, but we just need to understand it all starts off from you taking care of hygiene and making sure we don't allow it to spread.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's perfect. And now obesity is a worldwide issue, and as a result of that, many people are getting used to the usage of medication for weight loss, the likes of Ozempic and Mounjaro. So, and there are many others as well. And that is definitely because there are so many success stories attached to the usage of these medications. So can you share your thoughts on that? How safe it is? Can anyone just use it regardless of what health condition he or she might be having? So your thoughts on that, yeah.
I think I'll just start off by saying, like any drug, the media, social media now is the worst nightmare. So when you have people that are celebrities or other people, they spread this thing and they talk about how amazing this drug is. And of course, you've got the young and the people that are trying to lose weight. And so everyone just follows this mass mania of, oh, I can do it, I can use it. And that's what had happened to a point that even in Malak, in Gambia, we are being asked, do we have it? So obviously, not only is it affecting worldwide, but even smaller countries where you presume this wouldn't affect us, it's affecting us. So now I will point it out. First, number one, I'm going to say that people should never just follow what is on the media. You need to be understanding that everything is done for any drug, be it this or another one, is done for a particular disease and for a particular condition under a particular study. It doesn't go generalized for everyone. So in this particular issue, I would like Nour to take on this because it does make even far more repercussions that they are totally unaware of.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, which is a really good point about, when they were studied for certain patient groups, right? So the evidence and the safety is only linked to that patient group. So most of them are sort of diabetics. They're obese in the terms of their BMI is greater than sort of 29.9. So that's the range that was studied in. So when other patients want to come, or not even patients, just healthy individuals, use these products to lose weight, it's important for them to know that they can't sort of just buy it just because it's helped sort of their colleagues or their friends or their families. There could be serious consequences. Mm-hmm. And if they do want to sort of start on these drugs for, weight loss purposes, they really need to speak to a healthcare professional to see if it's suitable for them. I know a lot of sort of cases that have happened recently is one of the biggest side effects, for example, for your Mounjaro, is sort of GI, gastro side effects. Mm-hmm. So nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. And, from a first point basis, you think, that's not too intense. But these can link to sort of severe dehydration, kidney issues, hospitalization, and further organ damage. So there are major side effects that the media doesn't show because these drug companies are trying to sell these products. Yeah. So it's really important that if you want to be on these drugs, to speak to a healthcare professional. Another point actually that we talked about recently is contraception. So Mounjaro, patients haven't known this, but if you are sort of on contraception and you are taking or using Mounjaro rather, it can affect the absorption of your contraception and render its cover useless basically. So at that point, you need sort of additional forms of barrier contraception. If you're changing oral contraception therapy, you need cover 4 weeks before and 4 weeks after. All that sort of information that the general public won't know about or know to look. So it's really important. Basically, the key message is that before you use any of these products, speak to healthcare.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what has happened because of the demand, and sadly enough, like every other drug, it becomes on the black market. So people start peddling this like they peddle any other drug. Oh, I can get it for you. I can get you this. I've flown this. I can do it. What they don't realize that because this was produced for a certain group of people who desperately needed to survive, like their life depends on it. So without it, they can die. And you're just taking it because you decided that I'm a few kilos extra. Maybe I'm being a bit extreme, but I'm just trying to get the point across. So now you have taken it. There's a major shortage of the drug. And the person who was made for in the first place can no longer access the drug. What have you resulted in? You've actually resulted in the death of someone else and the suffering that was supposed to have been taking it and doing well because you out of vanity and I'm not, as I said, I'm not drawing a picture that everybody is under that umbrella. I'm just saying that in case where it is mostly because of the weight and not because seriously they need it, as my daughter said, that maybe it's not even to do with their body BMI or whatever value, because they feel that someone else has done it, and because social media and this world that is so toxic, telling everyone what size we should be, what color we should be, what shade we should be, you're resulting in taking something that not only is it harming you, and you don't need to have it, self-esteem is from within, but now you're now harming other people without even you realizing that you're doing it. So I think that's very important to let the public know about.
And it's not to draw away from the fact that, obesity is a big thing and it can impact, people's mental health. And of course, if they need sort of additional support to help tackle that issue, then, absolutely they're entitled to it. It's not to diminish from that certain patient population.
I think for me, when I mentioned that, you see, the obesity is the same as the diabetic group. So we are talking about genuine group of people, be it diabetic, obese, whatever, that genuinely need it, because with obesity, it's affecting their heart, this could lead to stroke, whatever. So we agree, these are the group we're talking for. I think for me, I'm pointing out for people that are using it, really, it's just for because they presume that they need a few kilos off, or they need to do this, or it could get their belly fat off. So this is why we know. But anyone that falls under the umbrella, this is why the main point is go to your healthcare professional, because then he will determine whether your condition is in need of this product. Then they can do all the tests to realize if there's any side effects, what ways, what are the pros, what are the cons, and then the decision can be made. I think that's the safe way of doing it without having, like, putting anyone in a wrong group or saying that they need it and they don't need it. But I think in general, with the healthcare professional, they can determine your need for it, and then hopefully then the people that truly need it can use it, and it will avoid all this danger and shortage of medication for the people that do.
Thank you very much. And dear viewers, that's all for today. Until we come your way, till then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
We've been through the journey of, the acne and the teenage years, even with boys. So you just literally start from base, talk to them, find out an advice on a skin routine that is good for their skin, and put them away from all the false information that they have out there that is actually making their skin worse.
Skin cancer affects everyone.
Absolutely.
It's very, very saddening. So yes, you do need sun protection, whether you grew up here, your great-grandparents grew up here. It's important that every day before you go up, you've got sun protection on.